Halloweeny. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. So a bit of background. My name is Noemi. I've been for the past 4+ years, 4.5 years, working in different roles with the Singapore Academy of Law. Initially as the Future Law Innovation Program Manager, helping small law firms, large law firms, in-house legal departments, legal technology companies, and the ecosystem to kind of help drive innovation within the legal sector here. And more recently, I've been focusing a lot of my time on the Lighten-Up Consulting program, which is helping small law firms to kind of navigate innovation and try to, in simple ways, try to rethink how they currently work and try to find ways to improve their processes and their workflows. And so I won't have to do too much hustle for Lighten Up today, because it's not really the purpose of the conversation. If you are interested, you're going to hear a lot about the Kith Kin journey this afternoon. If you are interested to find out more, I will send you follow-up emails. Of course, please do ping me. But today is not about me or Lighten Up per se or Flip. It's really about Shen Kiat and Kith Kin and your own journey. I'd like to think that journey was helped a little bit through Lighten Up. Definitely. But I'll stop here and maybe start with the very first question, which is introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about who you are and what you do.
Right. Of course. And anyway, hi, Adrian, and hi, JNT, if I got your names correctly. Yeah, I'm Shen. You can call me SK. I think it's quite a small session, so even better. I think we can share a lot more intimately and a lot more interesting, from the heart kind of sharing really. So I am Shen. You can call me SK. I'm the founder of this law firm called Kith Kin. We are basically a private client focused law firm. 100% non-contentious, doing non-contentious complex private client work in the area of succession, trust, estate planning, and mental capacity law. So we conveniently call ourselves the STEM law practice, but not your usual kind of STEM, right? So I started off with just me and my ex-partner. I bought him out a year and a half ago. We turned 2 years old in September 2021.
Yay.
And we currently, yay! I never thought I'd survive so. And we turned, and so we currently have 3 lawyers, including myself, and 2 project people. Like, they are not paralegals, they are not support staff. They are, I call them project managers, or project leads. So we have some interesting projects internally, within the firm and also with external stakeholders, and they come in and fill this gap. Yeah, so I met Naomi when we were both in the same co-working space, and because I was starting my law firm in 2019 June, and it was a blank canvas, and obviously, I'm a newbie lawyer, relatively new, and this is only my 8-year PQE. And I was like, what sort of I don't know, advantage that I could have, right, over more senior practitioners. And as a lawyer, I know what I'm dissatisfied with, but I'm not sure what satisfies me. Like, what should I be looking out for? So the program that Naomi mentioned about came at a time where we were sort of looking for direction. So it's more like, there's something, anything goes, and just go for it. There's no loss, right? And see how it goes. Yeah.
You mentioned, and so the advantage with you in a way, right, is as you said, we were starting from a blank canvas, right?
That's right.
Which initially the program wasn't necessarily designed for brand new firms, but you also mentioned something that is interesting, which is, you weren't a brand new lawyer. You had, 8 years PQE at the time. And you mentioned that you knew what you weren't happy about. You knew, you knew what you wanted to change, but you didn't necessarily know how. what were these kind of things that you knew you wanted to change, you knew you weren't happy with, or some of the practices that you knew you didn't want to bring to your own firm?
Yeah, I know that's such a great question. I think there's a lot of activities in the day-to-day running of a firm that can be quite draining, that doesn't really spark joy, if I may put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Marie Kondo,
issues.
your practice.
Yes,
That
and
actually
this
used to be one of our marketing line,
is
like
it.
super cheesy. Yeah, at some point we use that in an EDM. Anyway, sorry.
Right, but I think that's absolutely true. Like I think okay. So one of the well, I always thought that generally as law in like law firms, right, clients tend to be very satisfied about the outcomes that you obtain for them, but they seldom thank you for the process that you have to drag them through, right? So what are some of the part of this process, right? For example, something as simple as arranging an appointment to see you, right? And you have to go through, your secretary, and then your secretary, double booked your calendar, or forgot to put, forgot to calendar, another event, and then you get all these a clash in conflicts in the calendaring. These are like little stress points for both the secretary, your client, and yourself, right? So I mean, yeah, so it was something as simple and straightforward as scheduling and realizing that it's done in a manner that is very ineffective. It's done in a manner that is not client-centered, right? And hence I thought, yeah, okay, I think if I come out, this is one of the issues that I would want to address. The second would be, and I think this is something that most lawyers will be able to appreciate, right? Knowledge management, right? So some of the firms that I've known, I've worked for, including the bigger ones, they tend to have your usual folders in your, on your computer, and then you have all the different classification of practice area and all the individual precedents, right? But over time, it's very difficult to keep track of which precedents are updated or not. And you're always, I mean, and the precedents are important because they are always one of the first source of generating whatever documents that you need to. But over time, you realize, hey, yes, such a big precedent, but you don't know the trustworthiness of that precedents as well, right? So you have this in mind that, hey, you have a resource, but the resource is actually not usable or not very usable. But obviously it's very hard, difficult to let management know, right? And even if the management know, what can you deal with it? So this was some of the, issues that I had when I decided to leave practice. Not leave practice, leave, being employed by someone
Yeah, and
for
start your
coming on my
own.
own.
And start
Yeah.
your own. And actually, we have a fairly small group this afternoon. So if anyone, wants to react, or if there's anything that Shen Kiat is, talking about that you relating to, or anything, that is a pain point to you that, you don't really know how to address it, but you've identified that this was a problem. Just feel free to hit us up in the chat function. It's a small group this afternoon, so as much as possible, we can try to make the session interactive. Yes. So any questions, comments, or just reactions, just use the chat functionality. Yeah. So some of the things that you've mentioned, it's kind of related to there's always a lot of administrative burden that feels a bit unnecessary and inefficient, And one thing to pick up on from your first example is it's inefficient, but it doesn't spark joy for you, but it also doesn't spark joy for the client, right? And we try to, rethink and transform what is going to have a high impact. And usually anything that touches the client, right? Anything where the client is going to interface with, that's definitely important to rethink and improve. It was a long time ago in a way. I mean, it feels like it was only like mid 2019, but it feels, I mean, a different
before the pandemic. Tell me a bit more about your expectations of the Lighten-Up Consulting program, and tell me a bit more about your journey. And we have a question that you know, and maybe we can talk about that later. But it's a really good question on how to go about implementing automation in your practice. So thank you so much for that question. And tell me a bit more about your journey.
Yeah, so really when I first started out, I was a bit, how should I put it? I mean, I guess as lawyers, you're generally very, if you don't mind the language, very attuned to bullshit, right? Kind of thing. And the thing with like talking about, you know, terms like productivity, implementing technological solutions, after a while, try to find out more about solutions and what sort of issue you can sort out in your own firm tends to be a bit salesy in nature, because they end up talking to vendors. So I think the period where I came out in 2019 to start my own law firm coincides with all the money that's flowing into the legal community with like tax salary and all that stuff. But I truly had an issue with that, because it is like a software diagnostic kind of thing, but it doesn't tell you where your inefficiencies are and how can you, where's the starting point to deal with it. All right, as opposed to just throwing throwing money and tools at a problem that you don't even know what you're trying to solve, right? And I think in that connection, Lighten-Up was interesting. I mean, obviously I didn't know it was interesting there, but having gone through it, because it was software agnostic, I mean, I could ask any question that I want and know that I could, to a large degree, trust the replies that came from the consultants, right? And Bill and and gang. And that was very helpful in helping me reframe the mindset to my approach towards the kind of issues that I am dealing with. So one of the very good advice that I obtained then was, and which I suppose is to address JNT question as well, is where do I start? How do I even start this process of so-called automation? What is digital transformation? You know, all this seems like dirty words, words that makes you, you know, revolve and what's not. So I think he said something to me that I thought was quite interesting. He said, let's start from something that is high volume, high value, and rules-based. And I think with these three categories, I was able to start thinking, okay, what is high volume, high value, and rules-based, right, that I could devote my time to? And personally for myself, that would be the initial client intake, right? Because private client work is all about, you know, being client-centered, being in a collaborative relationship with the clients that you are serving. And the best way to go about give you a bad impression is to make yourself very hard to be reached out to, right? And when you're taking quite a number of leads, I think that trying to sort out, you know, our scheduler system was actually the first stop. I mean, you know, what that fits into this framework of high volume, high value, and rules based. So yeah, and other issues would be like, you know, generating your initial email to clients, letter to clients, holding emails. So those are the first few things that I started with. Then eventually, because we're new to the thing, and then we learned that, hey, you know, there are other interesting, I won't say problems, there are other interesting challenges and opportunities to open up once we get this part of the jigsaw sorted out. So once I got my scheduler sorted out, and I know that my scheduler collects basic data like email address, names, and phone numbers of my clients, then I begin to then, why can't I just sort out other workflows like automating client reminders, right? Oh, we're going to have an appointment today, you know, and pre-program it so that it's sent 2 days in advance and 2 hours in advance, you know, kind of thing. And use the same data sets that the clients input themselves into my matter opening, like into my own practice management system, so that I don't have to duplicate the effort. So that was great, actually. And I think on hindsight, when I look back, I realized that at that point in time, once I program, I was thinking about, yeah, where should I start? Should I deal with marketing? Should I deal with my own business processes? Should I deal with business development? And I think somehow or another, and I didn't really see at the point in time, I focused on doing my own work well, because doing your own work well is also a form of marketing, right? So I started with my own internal firm processes, and as I just shared with you guys, that would be with respect to implementing a scheduler. And the thing about scheduler, if I may add, is very interesting. It's like a really low-hanging fruit. You give clients the agency to fix an appointment with you, right? And they feel that they are in control. But at the same time, you're in control because you can let them see the dates you are available and unavailable, and you can pre-program that in advance, right? So some of my, okay, they are not my clients, but they will never see me in office on Monday and Fridays, kind of thing. I will take client meetings from Tuesday to Thursdays, and from a starting time. So they don't need to see all that, but that's the availability that they will see. And I think we are also at the age where we are past the legacy software kind of thing. So the change in mindset as to how we can make life easier for us coincides with how should I put it? Many options to make that a reality, because now almost every other program can talk to each other, right? Yeah. So various form of integrations. And so I basically got my deep dive into this subject, like my first step, really through the Lighten-Up program in that sense. Yeah, so it gave me a foothold, something that I could measure, other information that I've gathered further down the road in my law firm startup journey.
And if I can just add so this idea of automation, right? Very often it's because, again, it sounds very technical. It sounds very daunting. Oh, it sounds expensive. It's going to require a lot of fancy technology or expensive technology, right? But in a lot of the projects that we've worked with, we're talking about really simple solutions. So things like Calendly, for example. I don't have a receptionist.
I got the inspiration of Calendly from you guys, because we had to book appointments to you guys through Calendly, but we use the paid version now.
Okay, good. So I'm not sure. It's just showing some examples. It's a solution. The free version is pretty good already. So you can test it and without having to pay. I personally pay for it, but you don't need to. You send a link to your client and they're able to book their time directly, right? And then the information is saved online, but it's also saved, and you can, when Shen Kiat talks about, integration and systems talking to each other very easily, and again, in a lot of cases for free, you can get something like Calendly or whatever scheduler you're using to connect to your practice management or any other solution to start creating an automated workflow, so you don't have to put the same information multiple times. And we've done that for the scheduler. We've done that for client onboarding. We often talk about lawyers leveraging their data. Your client information, right? Even just basic contact details is useful data that then you can, once you collect it, you can use for marketing, you can use for a lot of different reasons. So I think it's a really good, I think it's a really, really good example. You also mentioned something that I thought was interesting, was this, where do I start? And then starting to see more opportunities for change. And I like the fact that you didn't talk about problems necessarily. Sometimes there are issues, but in a lot of cases, it's opportunity for change. Do you feel that the hardest part of the journey is to actually get started? And then once you're in that mindset of what are the opportunities for change, it's easier even beyond the time, you know, of Lighten-Up Consulting and beyond the consulting, the program, that you feel that you have that more of that mindset of identifying opportunities for change?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. I think, okay, so I remember during the Lighten-Up program, one of the things that I was focusing on with the consultants were how can we make probate practice more efficient, you know, especially since it also faces the high volume, high value rules-based kind of model. And it was really painful at the point in time, and I couldn't see the meaning of what we were doing. Basically, what we were trying to do at the point, what the consultant was trying to make us do is, can you please segmentize your process, you know, right down from client intake all the way to, like, you know, delivering the final outcome? Can you please list down the number of minutes, you know, that you are doing all this stuff? Like, huh, that's the number of minutes. You know, I couldn't really, for the sake of my life, figure out why do we have to go into such detail. I think looking back, I think I've never referred back to that process again. But the journey of going through it really made me realize that trying to know your practice area really well, because we are so good at our work that, you know, that you just by muscle memory and natural instinct you can deliver the work. But if you take a step back and think of it in terms of segments, that would eventually you know, release some creativity juices in you to help you figure out, hey, what do you need to deal with actually. So with regards to probate practice, we thought, okay, one of the things that we often had to generate are very straightforward cost papers. Cost papers are basically court papers, right? So you have the name of a client, the applicant, the name of the deceased, and all that stuff. So we basically automate those, you know, and so with a click of a button, my entire set of cost papers are generated once I have the, you know, preliminary input from the clients. And yeah, and I think going through that very icky process of looking very deeply introspectively at our practice did eventually over some time give me some ideas on what I can automate. I would probably also want to share a bit about my scheduling experience as well. I mean, please don't book my time. I mean, you can lie if you want to. I just drop a link in the chat group so you guys can click on it. This must be one of the best things that I've done. I mean, you guys have been like, what's such a big deal with a scheduler, right? But this scheduler is amazing because this is for someone to you know, to fix a meeting with me over Zoom or Google Meet or over the phone. If you guys just, you know, click around, you realize that there are options for you to choose Zoom, Google Meet, and phone call. And really, if you follow through the process and confirm the appointment, a Zoom link will automatically be sent to the client. And at the same time, I will receive the calendar invite and it will be lodged automatically in my own firm's calendar as well. Right. I'm not sure how you guys arrange Zoom meetings currently with your clients. Do you have the usual to and fro? Let's set the date, then schedule a meeting within the Zoom app, and then after that you send the link to your clients, right? So yeah, and this involves two separate subscriptions, right? So a Calendly Pro subscription and a Zoom subscription, and they can talk to each other. You know, I don't need any tech person to help me do this. All it took was a few clicks, and any non-techie can do that, and these two things start to speak to each other. And my clients, they feedback, hey, you know, you're one of the easiest firms to reach out to online, kind of thing, right? And one thing you don't get to see with this link is that it's a single-use link. So you guys kind of play me up. So it's a single-use link, it will expire after a while. You use it once and you can't use it again, right? So you can see there are certain benefits to this sort of users. So that said, Calendly is the final product. I mean, like the final outcome that you see in this iteration journey. But really at the beginning, I wasn't using Calendly. I experimented with more than 5 calendaring solutions. I tried, amongst them, I tried Acuity Scheduler, if you guys heard of it. Acuity Scheduler, they are really, really good, really customized. They can do a lot of things, including promo codes and all that stuff. I also tried HubSpot as well, because HubSpot, because I operate off a co-working space, and as a tenant, I get to enjoy 90% discount of the subscription. But I realized that each of these apps, they have their own pros and cons, right? So when I first started using Acuity, so I still use Acuity now, but it's on my website. And it's on my website because it deals with clients who have to, who are what I term co-leads, and it's on my website because it integrates a payment processor. It collects a consultation fee because I'm very adamant that clients should pay consultation fee, right? So that's my belief. And only after they pay the consultation fee, then a meeting will be created, right? So Acuity Scheduler is on my website, right, as part of my scheduling. But I am using Calendly at the same time because I didn't quite like the user experience, the user interface. It was very ugly, in my opinion, a bit chunky. And so I tried to experiment with HubSpot. HubSpot is beautiful, but HubSpot does not give a location. And right now we meet in person. We can also do online. So it's severely limited, even with the paid version. And then I move on to Calendly. Calendly is great. Calendly integrates with Stripe and PayPal, but they don't collect Singapore dollars. So I couldn't use it for my online. So I guess my point in sharing this with you guys really is that, that there's no silver bullet with regards to the apps that you use. As you can see, even for myself, for my own firm, we use two schedulers, right? But we know the purpose of why we use these two schedulers and what are they for. But ultimately, at the end of the day, these two schedulers, whatever data that comes in, it fits into a single file, a single data set, right, in our Excel spreadsheet, in our Google Docs. And we can then repeat the information for other users. So yeah, that's something for you guys, actually.
And thank you for sharing that thought process, because and that's actually why from the get-go it was really important for me as we were designing the program that it was going to be technology / vendor / solution agnostic, right? Because and listen, all of the providers, the technology providers in Singapore, and we can list a few, they're all awesome. They all have great solutions. They're usually have the best interest of clients at heart. They're all great, right? So it's not a dig at technology solution providers, far from it. I know them all personally. They're all great. They're all great, right? Yeah. But they nevertheless, offering a solution with pros and cons. And as you just described, it's a journey and it's a learning process, and very often as part of Lighten-Up, we help with that, of empowering you. I'll make some recommendations, I'll make some suggestions around what I think is going to be the most appropriate. But ultimately, it is about kind of empowering you as the decision maker of your firm to determine what's going to be best or not, right? And not being sold to, right, by solution provider. And
exactly.
Sorry, go ahead, Jan.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think if I may make a plug for Lighten-Up again, what it really helped for me was it helped me run through the initial stage, the psyche of, like, I'm just distrustful of everybody. I'm distrustful of what everybody is saying to me. I'm not sure what I'm looking for, but I know I'm looking for something. And basically to get these feelings out of my system, right? To just flush it out. And I think in that sense, the consultants that you guys have curated were excellent, because like you said, it's really not about the software, and I totally agree with you. It's really about the mindset, the reframing, and helping you understand a bit of the industry terms like business process re-engineering. What is that? How is that different from change strategy? Does it even matter? You know, the definition, so on and so forth. And then basically handhold you, right, and help you be a bit more stable, and then own these terms for yourself. And then after that, go and do what you want, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's actually quite fun when and it links back nearly to one of my earlier questions and to one of your earlier points, but is this idea of, you know, you're feeling so much more confident about making these type of decisions that not only are you able to have kind of make more informed decisions, but also you also then start looking at opportunities and challenges, but in your practice in a different way, because you're feeling a bit more comfortable about technology around.
Yes.
There is a great question that I saw pop in, and the question is it still necessary for law firms to have a physical office, or are we moving towards virtual office? What are your thoughts on that? So I am, you know, my 2 cents on that is I am speaking every week to firms that are now completely virtual, to a number of firms that have set up during COVID, either out of choice or because, you know, the timing was wrong, and who are completely operating in a virtual manner. And that presents, you know, opportunities and some challenges for sure. But what are your thoughts on that? It's a great question.
It's a great question. I must say that, well, I started from home, and I had found it as a registered address. That was how I started initially. And then I was probably the first law firm in Singapore that started only with a co-working, like with a hot desk in a co-working space. Yeah. So for those of you who set up law firms, you know that you need to submit all these documents to MinLaw, right? I think there must be a reason why MinLaw took about 7 months to approve my application to set up a law firm. So I don't even have a fixed desk. I don't even have a cabinet on my own. And MinLaw asked me a lot of questions on how am I going to run my practice actually.
Plans and, you know,
yeah. And then eventually, we got a bit of money. Then we decided to rent a 2-room private office in the same co-working space. And we did that partly because we wanted, I suppose, we thought maybe our team will grow to maybe a size of between 5 to 10, and we might want a hub, HUB, right, where people can meet up. And also the co-working space was great for us because we had beautiful meeting rooms, right, Naomi? And it's almost like a cafe or a bar kind of setting. And that fits for the kind of clientele that we're dealing with. Right. And yet at the same time, I don't need to deal with facilities management because and that's very important during COVID. Can you imagine, like, you're a lawyer, you have your own office, and then you have to go and paste all the stickers, do all the markings, sell out the, you know, temperature taking stuff, right? That's not your, you know, pasta. That's not what you're paid to do. So the co-working space actually managed all these facilities management and just allow us to practice in peace. Half my practice involved going out to meet my clients. So in a sense, having a physical office, but being office-like, right? A hybrid, right? I wouldn't say it's either or. Either you go virtual or you be physical. I think a hybrid, personally, for my own private client practice, works really, really well.
I'm seeing a lot of different models, and I think it's a brilliant question. And my answer would nearly be it depends, which is not the most useful answer, but I think it depends on the area of practice, you know, and the clients, the type of work that you do, and also in some cases the circumstances of the team members. I'm seeing a lot of the hybrid model. I really like co-working spaces, but I'm biased because I was based in one for a really long time before, you know, my flip cave moved to my home office. I think the hybrid model works well because people are still craving the being able to meet. I also see some folks who still have their full-fledged office, you know, the small full-fledged office, but they are working from home. And then you're like, why are you paying, you know, why are you still paying so much money? And as you said, right, and then the maintenance of your own printer, of your own. So I think it depends, but the one point that I would mention from experience on some of those Lighten-Up projects is very often we end up working on nearly more of a HR project than an ops process project, because managing people, law firms, oh, that's going to be a bit controversial, but my experience with small law firms is that the managing director, managing partners are oftentimes not great managers. They can be great leaders, but they're not great managers. No one teaches you that stuff in law school. So it's a lot easier to be like, okay, now you come to the office and we all do our work, and then, you know, we leave, right? But actively, proactively managing people, everyone is from home, is something that that needs to be actively done, right? As opposed to passively. And so that's the only issue from the full working from home, is that I find in a lot of cases, if the managing director is not, you know, innately a good manager, they have to work on it a lot harder to make sure that they can be managing their team.
No, Naomi, it's not controversial. It is the truth. It is the truth, you know.
You know me, right? That's my little disclaimer to sound nice about it.
Yeah, it is the truth, and I think so. That's the thing. I also have the benefit of just being in the office. Even if it's mixed, right? You get the practice of law can be very intense, very narrowly focused, very secular, maybe, you know, you might even put it that way. And I found that you know, being in the space, the co-working space that I'm in once in a while, and got to meet non-lawyers doing interesting stuff, and I got to learn things about UX, chatbot, you know, message writing, right? How do you develop something like that, and how can that work for my law firm? So it's constantly having your creative juices, you know, being constantly being inspired by what other non-lawyers are doing out there, and eventually being able to see some relevance and connection to my area of work in that sense.
And obviously you're very young, right? But just as a piece of context, we in the co-working space where we're based, right? So that's previous, that's before COVID, right? Obviously we had young lawyers, and you're probably like, oh, you know, I don't know, I don't know the profile, the demographics of people we have online today, but we had, you know, older lawyers, right? People in their, you know, 60s, who, you know, would be sitting down in the lounge area, meeting, you know, you meet people at the coffee machine, they're, you know, kids doing some startup, they'll probably disappear after 6 months because the whole thing is going bust, you know, but you're constantly meeting different people during different things, right? And I think it's having that, and that can be true co-working space, but there's a lot of different ways you can explore that, right? Like going to events, participating in non-legal events, right? You all sign legal to Eventbrite, like having that, you know, pushing yourself a bit out there of like meeting people that are not within the legal industry and trying to figure out, okay, they are solving these problems. That's what matters to that industry. How do I take that to my practice, which I think is what you were you're mentioning, right? That exposed you to like, oh, how do I relate that back to my practice?
Yeah, exactly. It's like I learned a lot about hustling from you, Naomi, right? And you know, and how you guys go about engaging clients and the tools that you put in place to do so. And then we try and reverse engineer it, right? And we ask ourselves, okay, that's interesting. How can we do it for ourselves, you know, and learning vicariously from other people's experiences. I think really for the lawyers here, right? If I assume most of them, all of them are lawyers. I think it would be useful to think about your legal, the starting point should be from your clients, right? Because you sell a law firm, everything is geared towards serving the client. So you think about the end-to-end client journey. And if I might rephrase all these marketing terms like inbound marketing, outbound marketing into something that is more palatable to lawyers, right? So I would say that there are 3 stages to this end-to-end client journey. The first stage is what I call awareness and consideration, right? So you guys study contract law, you know consideration, right? So that's really where you do your marketing. You try to intake new clients, and you try to convert the intake into lead conversion, right? So you want them to consider you. You want them to make a decision and enter into an agreement with you, right? To use your services. So I call that the growth component, the stage 1, right? Where you do your marketing. So there is scope to streamline and automate, right? And make this more efficient in this particular stage. And then the second stage would be managing, right? Managing your firm, how you deliver, how you produce the deliverables, right? So that would be, okay, what happens when you onboard a client? How do you start the case, right? Is it with this particular email, collecting this information, case resolution, right down to your billing, right? How do you invoice? And how can you deal with the steps in between this second stage that are very repetitive? And I think one of them would really be invoicing, really. So I use zero. Zero is awesome. Without zero, I can tell you, I will not send out my own practice. Yeah, so anyway, moving on. So casework, and then trying to, so second stage is really about casework and trying to retain the clients, right? And the final stage is advocacy, right? Advocacy is really trying to convince your clients to refer other clients to you, right? So that is the what I call the third stage, where you want to get where you want to review the client experience with them. You want to have a feedback loop, and then encourage them to refer people to you. So that's
it's so incredibly important, because maybe that is different for the folks that we have online today, right? But I'd say most of the firms that I speak to, 90% of their business comes from either existing or previous clients, from referrals from existing or previous clients, right? So that's your marketing right there. So how do you make sure that you deliver a service that is great enough for them to become those advocates? Wow, we should do another marketing 101 with you, because you cracked it. That's really cool. I just wanted to address one of the points. So to get back quickly to the address, do we need to have a registered office address? And I appreciate it's you at the point where your lease. Correct me if I'm wrong. So you do need a registered office address. Your registered office address, you can pay for it. You can pay, I think, as low as $150 for something that is a decent address, right? Not some industrial park in Ubi. But I get a decent registered office address where all you get is a post box for like 150, maybe $200 per month. It depends on where you stay yourself, but you could also use your residence as your registered address. Keeping in mind that in some cases, I think that it's not possible to have your HDB as your registered home address, and you also may not want to have your home address on all of the paperwork and etc. But yes, so maybe a point that we can take offline, but you do need a registered office address, but it can be literally just an address. So I have my own consultancy. I have a nice office address. I receive letters sometimes. They email me to say, hey, you have a letter, and that's the document on all of the documentation, but I don't need, I only pay like $120 or something. So
I think Found is even cheaper for the registered address.
Really?
I think it's less than 100.
Oh,
for mail management,
Maybe I should maybe I should have gone that route. Let me do a quick time check.
Yeah.
So we have about 9 minutes or so. I have one more question, but I would like to open it to everyone. Any questions on you know, the innovation journey for small law firms? Any maybe thoughts or comments that you have? Any frustrations? It's a small, intimate group this afternoon. You know, and we appreciate everyone is at very different stages of their journey. But if there are any questions, you can ping them in the chat.
Just unmute yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Like, or you can just unmute yourself if you want to show us your beautiful faces too. That's good. Probably tired of looking at us. So any questions? So yeah, you can hit us up in the chat or just unmute. It's always the awkward part.
Right, it takes time to type.
Usually there's once one person asks a question, yay, we have a question. Yeah, we have 2 questions. Okay, so the first one is, what is your experience in trying to get the different software and systems to work together seamlessly? That is such a great question.
Well, firstly, it's a lot of try and error, to be honest. So I mean, I raised my scheduler example earlier, right? I thought, hey, you know, my starting point was I need to collect Singapore dollars. I know PayPal, I know Stripe collects SGD, right? But then when I realized that, hey, when I integrate with you know, the Calendly and what's not, hey, the denominations are suddenly limited. And that's I realized that, hey, I can't take it for granted, you know. But then again, it's all through try and error, right? That I got to find out about this integration. But really, by and large, the process has been relatively straightforward, especially if you use applications that are unicorns. So I use like Airtable, I use Slack, as my command post. I don't really use Microsoft Teams because they have all the functions, but how should I put it? You know, life is like a video game, right? And once you cross various levels, you get certain credits where you can decide to strengthen one particular aspect of your character, right? So you might have a character that's very good in attack, but maybe very poor in defense, or you can have a very average character, right? I think that's Microsoft Teams for me. You know, it evens out. Whereas there are many other software out there.
Gaming analogy.
Yeah, that is very good at what they are doing. Like I think Calendly is better than Microsoft calendars, like Microsoft this calendaring system, and Slack is a better command post for me. You know, and all these things talks to each other so seamlessly that I don't even think twice now on whether they are compatible or not. That said, you can always check in advance on the different app integrations. All the source code are all open. We call it the open API movement. And there's also this thing called the no code. I forgot the term for it. No code movement is essentially, right, that allows lay people like you and me to easily put different pieces of this software together.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I think to do this well, in piecing all these different software and systems together, you need to identify your workflow. Really, I mean, you probably heard this from other people. I realized that this workflow thing is not bullshit. It's really true. It's really 95% of the work that you put in. So my workflow will be, you know, to share an example, right? I use Clio. I don't use the localized system like Tesseract. I use Clio as my practice management system. Even though it's made for the North American market and Canada, but I find the support amazing. Yeah, so my workflow is, you know, if I want, like, I meet somebody new for first time, what do? I save their handphone number, right? So that would be saving a new contact, right? And then from the new contact, you then create a new matter, right? That's whether you open a file. You know, so it's very intuitive. It's nothing too overly funky, you know, where you want to onboard a new client, right? And then after you open a new file, then you have how to, your usual way of labeling the file, so and so forth. And so how I label the file, how I put in the entries, essentially will be repeated across my letter of engagement, my cost papers, my invoice as well. So as long as I input it right the first time, that's it. I don't have to, be overly worried. So that's
the advantage of using, software as a service type of solutions. Web-based solutions are fairly well established.
Exactly.
Chances are they'll connect with each other, they'll connect with Words, they'll connect with most calendar applications, they'll connect with each other. And then even if they don't, and oftentimes you can go to the page of the solution that you're looking into and see the integrations, right? And in some cases, if there's an integration that isn't listed, there are things like Zapier. Have you used that before, Zapier?
Oh, yes, of course. I use Zapier to onboard my clients, right? So I use Typeform to collect clients' information and Zapier into my Clio.
Yeah, Zapier is amazing.
Zapier is amazing.
Follow-up, but you basically can, in a lot of cases for free, able to connect one solution from another, and it takes about 5 minutes to say, when this trigger, when something happens, we call that a trigger. When that happens, I want this to happen. Right? You can create some really complex, simple or complex workflows. There was another question, which I think is a really good question. Is for some of us who are still heavily physical files based, what is the best into converting into paperless? Paperless or at least Paperlight, right?
It's a very good question. Yeah, paper. I think it's a very great question, and I will give you an answer that was provided by a friend of mine from this law firm called Dead Legal. I'm not sure if you guys heard of them. They are a boutique intellectual property practice. So they do a mixture of litigation and also corporate IP work. So in a sense, maybe the answer that they provided might be useful for you, because I do mainly non-contentious work. They told me that, they are also, they need to transfer to paperless, but obviously all the current physical files, right? So really the first hard decision that they made was, we need to have a hard stop. We need to say that, hey, okay, so from 1st November 2021 onwards, we're going to be paperless. That will be our hard stop, right? And I think that, and that is actually very useful, because number one, you stop the accumulation of physical files. So you might have a backlog, but at least it won't grow, right? And then moving forward, your new clients, which you'll be servicing a lot more often than your old clients, you'll be moving on to a paperless. So your workload, your life will increasingly be better. And then you can hire someone, right? Some intern or someone who's able to then slowly but surely help you to digitalize your physical files. So I think as a matter of practical strategy, I think that is fantastic. Have a hard stop and then onboard your new clients using the Paperless system that you're going to put in place, and then slowly, put the physical files slowly digitalize them. And I think it's okay. Don't let people tell you that, we are duplicating effort. We are having two, concurrent system in place. I think it's fine. In fact, it might encourage employee retention actually, because not everybody will be able to, use this new system readily, right? So you're basically giving everybody a sufficiently long runway to onboard themselves to the new system. And I think there's some benefit to, at least in the short term, to maintain a dual track. So that you don't put too much mental stress on your existing employees in this whole transition process.
And I said I wouldn't hustle much today about Lighten-Up Consulting, but there is a question around what Lighten-Up Consulting can offer, right? And the program is free. SAL has generously offered this program for free.
For free. I pay $1,500 when my firm has no money.
You have to pay for it. So these poor law firms that who have to navigate the pandemic and the troubled times of the pandemic. It is free for them at the moment. You have until the year end, right? The program is free until the year end. But you know, we can help. I'll send you a bit more information afterwards as a follow-up, but you know, all of the things that we just discussed, right? Whether it's automation, whether it's going paper light, if not paperless, you know, helping you map out your processes and start looking at inefficiencies, try to figure out how we can adopt technology, or in a lot of cases, how do we maximize what you've already paid for, right? Because in a lot of cases, the firms have already implemented and adopted, you know, 2 years ago, you started with that, right? Like all of the financial support and everyone signed up to textile loan, etc. And these are great programs, right? But in a lot of cases, you're not even maximizing, you're not even using the solutions that you're paying for, right? So all of this and so much more, automation, process mapping, all of that, that's how we can help. And I'm mindful of the time, so I keep my hustle very, very short, but I will send you some more information about the program. It's, I promise, fun experience. Yes, so watching your emails, I'll send you a bit more about the free Lighten Up. I'm adding the free again, right? Yeah, you had part of it.
Yeah, actually, if I just add to the gloss, right, that you have already put out. So my firm is currently also participating in the Law Society / SAL, the Raising the Bar thing, which seems to be very similar to Lighten-Up.
We launched it first.
Yeah, but okay, I must really say that I mean, I'm halfway through it. I think the Lighten-Up really, I feel like I will not get the most out of the current program now if not for Lighten-Up. Really, it's like, how should I put it? You need to, if this doesn't sound too good, you need to get your virgin experience, you know, of dealing with this whole legal innovation stuff out of the way. You need to do it in a safe zone with consultants that doesn't judge you, with as low opportunity cost as possible. And I think this is perfect because how many, I mean, what does SAL gain from this, right? You know, it's not like your law firm's KPIs are their KPIs. It's not like how much you earn, they will get bigger bonuses, right? So I think the fact that they actively reach out to you and provide this platform for you to run through these insecurities first before you are even in the mind, right? To think about innovation per se. And really, if there's anything that I have taken away from the Lighten-Up, it made me less insecure. It made me not too big about FOMO, you know, fear of missing out. It made me a bit more anchored and not to think about you know, all this new software as you know, the shiny toy syndrome kind of thing, right? So it made me really have that presence of mind to be really introspective about myself, my practice, my colleagues, you know, who am I as a person? How can I blend me as a person, my character, my authentic self with the way I want to practice, you know? If I'm someone who, I mean, why do I want a calendar system? Why do I want these payment processes? You know, but I know I don't like to talk to clients about money, right? But if I link my scheduler or payment processor, clients get the hint, you know, and I load them with as much free information as possible. So they know that, hey, if they do want to move forward, for the 5% of information that is not free and curated, they need to pay. And I am happy because I don't have the stress of chasing them for funds. Yeah, so really my plug is the Lighten-Up is really like, I feel like it's the first step that anybody should go through. You have the opportunity, and you know, and even if it's paid, and I stand by my word, even if it's paid, you should really go through it.
You are, so that's wonderful. You can do the hustling for me now. You are.
I learn from the best.
You are an advocate. Thank you so much for the super kind words. This was not rehearsed, guys, I promise. But thank you so much. Really appreciate it. So great. So great to see, you know, you and the firm kind of grow, and you growing as a person, as a lawyer, as an entrepreneur, as a business person. It's really, really cool. I'm very mindful of. We did overrun. I'm surprised no one left. So hopefully that means that the conversation was interesting to everyone. We could probably continue and speak for another hour nonstop, but I'm sure everyone needs to crack on with whatever they were supposed to do. But thank you so much for super no BS, super candid conversation. I kind of had a sense of what you were going to talk about, because I know your journey, and I still found it useful and learned a lot. So I really, really hope that everyone online found it useful. I will send you a follow-up email if you want to connect with Shen Kiat on LinkedIn, or, you know, his profile, or if you want to refer business to each other, as long as you're not doing the same type of work. It's always great to grow your network. And yeah, thank you so much for the questions, guys. It ended up being a bit interactive, which again in Zoom is not always easy to do. So thank you very much, Shen Kiat. Thank you for your time. And with you all very soon. Bye. Bye.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Thank you both.